Let's do some drywall. Hello everybody, here's a new video, another drywall repair. We have several videos on my playlist on patchwork like this. This is a very common patch. Everybody's home gets these type of patches. So I just make plenty of videos to show you how to do it. First thing you want to do is always plastic off your areas, put down tape. You want to contain the mess. It's easier to put down some plastic, tarp, whatever you have just to contain your demo out and contain your mess area. This is a spray texture, so I got a plastic off the sides and the front of it to contain the overspray of the spray splatter. Always contain your area. Once you get it all contained out, then you want to go through and just, your patch area, you're going to want to level it out. Get all the loose stuff out. You want to level it out. I use a T-square. I always have a T-square handy. If you don't have a T-square, you can use a level or a piece of wood, whatever you have. You just want to mark out the area nice and square with a pencil so you have a nice clean cutout area. This makes it easier to install the new sheetrock because sheetrock is square. It doesn't come in round pieces. Once I got the pencil area squared out, I just went halfway on my stud. I went halfway on the stud so I can put screws in the new sheetrock and the old sheetrock without adding backing. I'm scoring it with a razor blade knife. I'm using a nice new razor blade and I'm cutting deep, taking my time, and I'm cutting it deep. I'm scoring it deep because it's 1/2-inch sheetrock, so I want to be able to just cut it, score it deep, and then just snap it off and take off the excess. Clean it up, get it all cleaned up. Get your patch nice and cleaned up, ready for new sheetrock. Like I said, I cut halfway on the stud. You always want to go halfway on the stud if it's available. If you don't have another stud, then you're going to have to add backing. Once you get the area all squared up, you want to pull out any screws, any nails in your existing framing. On the top of this patch, I could have went another foot higher or so, but it's just a small fracture. So I'm just going to fix this fracture above it. No big deal. It's easy fix. Like I said, pull out all your screws and nails. And once you get all your nails and screws pulled out, you want to go through and put in plenty of screws. Like all my other videos, I always show putting screws on the outside edge of the sheetrock patches. This is to tighten up the old sheetrock, the old wall. You want to tighten it up. Add screws every 2 to 4 inches. Keep them symmetrical, nice screw layout. Makes it a nice, clean job. Plenty of screws, plenty of screws. On the top side of this patch, I'm just adding a piece of wood. This is just to fix the fracture, easy fix. Add plenty of screws to all the patches, and then you can turn around and install your new sheetrock piece. This is like a 2 foot by 1 foot, 2 foot by 2 foot piece. So I'm just using a new piece of sheetrock in its place. Get the sheetrock installed. You want to add plenty of screws. Always add plenty of screws in your new sheetrock piece. Every 2 to 4 inches, plenty of screws, nice and tight patch. We don't want a loose patch. We don't want it to crack out later on. Once you get all the screws added, you want to go through and scrape off your edges with a 6-inch knife. The 6-inch knife is always your go-to knife. All drywallers have a 6-inch knife. This is pretty much the main tool that we use. It's a tool with many uses. Scraping, I'm going to scrape the edges before I fiberglass mesh tape. I always use fiberglass mesh tape on all my repairs. So after you get the patches secured, plenty of screws scraped, go ahead and fiberglass mesh tape. Fiberglass mesh tape, you won't have any errors. It won't crack out if you use good fiberglass mesh tape. There are paper tapes and stuff like that, but with repairs, always stick with fiberglass mesh tape. Your fracture, just add a piece of tape over your fracture. This will just fix the crack. A simple fracture is easy fix like this. Always cut your fiberglass tape, use your 6-inch knife. You can cut piece by piece, so you can just lay it out and then score it with your 6-inch knife. Some people like to score it with a razor blade, but I just use a 6-inch knife. I'm using a 5-minute mud. I've plenty of videos using this 5-minute mud. If you're not confident in using hot muds, just go ahead and use a joint compound. Joint compounds have to dry overnight. I use these 5-minute muds for these simple patches. That way they dry and set up, and I can turn around and do a second coat, turn around texture in the same trip. Just mixing less than a half a pan, pretty thick mud because it is a first coat mud. Once you get your mud mixed up, go ahead and put it on the patch. I'm just filling in the seams where the fiberglass is. There's a little gap there between the old and new sheetrock. So I'm just pushing the mud in there to get in the gap, so I know it's kind of like a pre-fill. Just going up and down. You can go side to side with your first coat, up and down, whatever direction you want to go. Just a nice tight skim coat. We're not trying to put the mud on really heavy. We're using hot muds here. It doesn't shrink back with these hot muds. Any excess mud in your pans, clean them out. If you don't have a hose hooked up, then you can use a water bucket and a sponge technique like I do in my truck. I just wipe off my tools before they set up on my pan. Once you're done using your tools, always clean them up. You don't want the mud sitting in there in your pan, caking up, drying up. It just makes a mess of your tools. It's easier to clean as you go. Drywall is a messy process, so you always clean as you go. You need your 6-inch knife and a sponge. This is a wet sanding technique. I hit the edges of the patch with the sponge to get rid of the edge and just slick it out. This is a 5-minute mud, so it's been about 4 minutes. It's starting to set up. So you want to catch the hot mud before it sets up, not after it sets up. That's the confusion with these hot muds. You want to work with them as they're setting up. Get rid of your edge, go over it with the sponge, go ahead and just mix a second coat. Like I said, if you're not using hot muds, then go ahead and use the second coat would be your second coat joint compound. It doesn't have to be as thick as your first coat, a little thinner. We're just going to mix it up. I just probably needs about a quarter of a pan of mud. Just going to do a tight skim coat, second coat over this patch with this hot mud. My first coat, I went up and down, so now I'm going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to go horizontal coat. Nice tight coat. I put all my materials on the patch, and then I'm going to feather off the edges and take off the excess mud. Feathering it. This is feathering it. Basically, your knife, your finger guides the control of the knife. You're not going to have the best knife control if you're not a daily drywaller, but do your best. Just slick it out tight. You're not putting a big heavy patch on the wall. You're just skimming it out tight. Get rid of your excess mud. Same thing here. Clean out your tools. Clean them up. Clean as you go. Clean as you go. Sometimes you have to do a third coat, but with my patchwork, I can get away with doing a second coat. So I'm going to clean up my tools really good, and I'm going to put away the tools I don't need anymore. I don't need my pan. I don't need my 12-inch knife. I'm going to keep my good 6-inch knife and a wet sponge. As I'm letting this mud set up, I'm going to be mixing some joint compound. This is a joint compound I have ready. I'm just mixing up with the stomper so it's nice and creamy, ready to go for the spray hopper. This is a spray hopper because this is a splatter texture. Your project might not need a spray type texture, but this is a spray splatter that I'm doing. Clean up as you go. I'm just scraping the sides of my bucket, clean it up. I don't want drying up. I don't want clumps of dry mud in my bucket, so I clean as I go. Now I'm going to get all the tools I need. Nice clean sponge, clean 6-inch knife, hopper full of mud, my spray compressor, and bring everything inside that I need to use. As the patch is setting up, same thing like the first coat. You want to get the wet sponge and slick it out. Slick it out, slick it out. We're slicking out the sponge, slicking out the patch, taking off the extra mud. We don't need a bunch of mud on the wall. We're not trying to put a big old mud hump on the wall. We're taking off the extra mud. If you're using joint compounds, you're going to have to sand in between coats. With these hot muds, you do this technique with a 6-inch knife and a wet sponge as the mud's starting to set up. Get rid of your edge. Get all your spray stuff set up. Make sure everything's ready for spray. Plug in your hopper. Set your spray. And then we're just going to do a spray pattern. Nice, consistent spray pattern. Start at the bottom. Just work my way up. Nice, consistent pattern. You want to keep the pattern the same, nice and consistent. Follow through, and sometimes you can cross it off, go in the opposite direction. Fill it in. Nice, even spray pattern. Hey, but this is a spray splatter patch, so it's easy. Get everything cleaned up. Get everything out of there. Pull your masking. and then you just let your patchwork dry for 24 hours. After it dries, then you can turn around and primer and paint. But this is an easy patch you can do. If you're not comfortable doing this, then definitely hire a professional. But hey, I got a lot of subscribers. Your channel's growing, so I appreciate if you like these videos, and thanks for subscribing. I'll be adding plenty more videos as the future comes along. Hey, thank you. Hey, drywall repairman here. Thanks for visiting my channel. I am a licensed drywaller. I do a lot of drywall repairs. Patches on ceilings, patches on walls, stress cracks. Simple do-it-yourself type drywall repairs you can do. So please watch and learn these videos, and please subscribe. Thanks for viewing.